The divide within the Democratic Party seems to be growing day by day, with a lot of finger pointing over the loss of House seats. Politico has obtained a memo from progressive groups going after Speaker Nancy Pelosi over a spot on late night television where she showed off her stock of pricey ice cream in a very expensive freezer at the height of the pandemic. The memo reads, "The economy was voters' top concern in this election. When Democratic leaders make unforced errors like this, while Trump tells voters we are the party of the swamp, it is not surprising that we lose." The groups also point out the ice cream bit spawned an attack ad by the Trump campaign entitled Nancy Antoinette. Power Panel slides in now. Leslie Marshall, Fox News contributor, Charlie Hurt, opinion editor at the Washington Times and a Fox News contributor. Leslie, I'll come to you. Speaking of Democrats, and I know you don't speak for all of them in your party, I am curious to know how you quell, though, the groundswell of division, which clearly it's happening.
It's clearly happening, and as a Democrat, it makes me very angry when you have the president-elect Joe Biden talking about uniting the country. We don't need this division within our party. First of all, voters did not vote based on Nancy Pelosi's refrigerator, her ice cream, or quite frankly, Nancy Pelosi necessarily. There are a few things they did vote about, Harris, when you just look at the numbers in a lot of these races that Democrats thought they would win or seats they thought they would flip. First, they didn't want Trump. They wanted Biden, maybe not a Democratic House or even a Democratic House and Senate. Secondly, some people were concerned about phrases, defund the police rather than reform the police, Medicare for all as opposed to we're going to expand on Obamacare, let you keep your private insurance if you have that and want it. But majority of Americans do want some kind of a government program to fill in that gap. So Democrats really messed up the messaging. And I'm sorry, but it is the progressive faction of my party that said that and did that. And they're blaming Nancy Pelosi, but they need to look in the mirror.
Yeah, I'm also hearing that there is at least some discussion about replacing Nancy Pelosi. I don't know what that would look like, but I just put that out there. A recent comment by former Democratic presidential candidate Andrew Yang goes to the issue of Democratic candidates connecting or not with the working class Americans.
There's something deeply wrong when working class Americans have that response to a major party that theoretically is supposed to be fighting for them. In their minds, the Democratic Party, unfortunately, has taken on this role of the coastal urban elites who are more concerned about policing various cultural issues than improving their way of life. This, to me, is a fundamental problem for the Democratic Party because if they don't figure this out, then this polarization and division will get worse, not better.
Charlie, your reaction?
Well, I think Andrew Yang is exactly right. Nancy Pelosi has been a punching bag of Republicans for a long time. And for more than 10 years now, Republicans have been winning local elections, basically running against not their opponent necessarily, but Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi has always been wildly out of touch with regular voters in this country, and especially those voters in places like Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, who Hillary Clinton lost 4 years ago. And what's interesting about this is that today, and the memo that you pointed out about from progressives, I think really highlights that. For a long time, Nancy Pelosi, it's going to be hard to take her out as speaker because she's so powerful within the caucus. She's such a fundraiser, a smart fundraiser. She is. It's going to be very difficult. But what's interesting about it right now is Nancy Pelosi used to be the left wing of her party. Over the past 10, 15 years, she's become the centrist of her party. And you've got these so-called progressives who are now coming at her from the left, which I think it's going to make it very difficult. It's going to make her job very difficult, to be sure. But it's going to be just as difficult for anybody who wants to challenge her to sort of cobble together any kind of coalition that's going to topple her in the House.
And haven't we seen that in the past? I mean, you had Representative Tim Ryan who wanted to go against her, and maybe that, I don't know how he was as a candidate for that position, but you just didn't hear a whole lot of people wanting to challenge Nancy Pelosi. Okay, I'm going to bring you two back, and I'm going to pick up on something you said, Leslie Marshall, with this next thing. The left side of the political aisle is now stepping up pressure on Joe Biden to appoint progressives to his cabinet. As you see, some names are being floated here. Senator Bernie Sanders also confirming he's open to accepting the labor secretary position. Elizabeth Warren is also mentioned as a potential Treasury secretary. The Massachusetts senator laid out some priorities she wants for a Biden agenda. Here's what Elizabeth Warren wrote. The lesson is clear. Bold policies to improve opportunity for all Americans are broadly popular. Voters recognize that these reforms are necessary to fix what is broken in our nation. Let's slide the panel back in now. Leslie Marshall, Charlie Hurst. Quick answers on these, and we'll get to a second topic, which I definitely want to do. Charlie, you go first.
Well, this has been the problem with the Biden campaign from the very beginning. It's sort of this Frankenstein campaign where, on the one hand, he has promised to make all of these gifts to people like Bernie Sanders, as you point out, is a socialist Democrat, and Elizabeth Warren. On the other hand, he claims he wants to be somebody who governs with a steady hand. Well, you can't be both, and no matter whatever he chooses, you're going to have half of the party is going to be incredibly dissatisfied with him.
So, Leslie, Abigail Spanberger just won in Virginia, Democrat, narrowly, only by 1%. But she said, don't say the word socialist. Don't say the word socialism, because she says you got to find a new way to fight against those attack ads.
I would agree the word socialism is not a good thing, and Bernie shouldn't be saying that. Look, Bernie Sanders had some ideas. I'll tell him, okay? Bernie Sanders, Senator Sanders, it was the first to come up with the $15 minimum wage. Florida, which voted red, voted for Donald Trump, also voted to increase the minimum wage to $15 an hour. That is liked by both left and right. That is appealing to the majority of the country. And I think Bernie Sanders as labor secretary, with that as the lead, would appeal to both sides, not just of Democrats, but across the aisle. And it'll make some on the very far left happy to have Bernie in that position.
All right, I'll scoot to this. The co-founder of Black Lives Matter the organization is asking for a meeting with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. In a letter, she wrote this: without the resounding support of black people, we would be saddled with a very different electoral outcome. We want to be heard and our agenda to be prioritized. End quote. This, as a growing number of Democrats are blaming ties with the defund the police movement for down ballot issues. Charlie, your reaction.
Well, this is what happens when you have party leaders of a major American party in Washington kowtow to things like the defund the police movement, which is crazy, radical. It doesn't represent any of the people that they claim that it represents. When you do that, you wind up with real problems on your hands. And now the idea that Nancy Pelosi is going to have to deal with her caucus having sort of aided and abetted that kind of nonsense, it's going to be a lot of fun to sit back and watch.
Fox News voter analysis found Joe Biden beat President Trump with the black vote 90% to 8%. And, it's interesting because the numbers of votes were so big this time around that you are going to see some growth for President Trump. I mean, 8% of a bigger number is, because he got 8% last time too, is a bigger number. So there is some appeal that's happening across the aisle from you. What is it, Leslie, and how do you deal with it if you're a Democrat?
Look, it's the economy. What I'm hearing from the African-American community, and what we've heard also from the leader of Black Lives Matter, is that Democrats and African-Americans have been helping to push, Democrats over the finish line, like Barack Obama, then Joe Biden, now. Joe Biden picked Kamala Harris. Joe Biden is going to have a diverse cabinet, a diverse staff. Joe Biden thanked the African-American community in his victory speech, but that doesn't go far enough, Harris, quite frankly. You have to have those promises, those words become action. You have to address systemic racism. You have to address the difference in wealth and help the black community with more business ownership, more home ownership. And these are specific requests from not just the leader of Black Lives Matter, but many in the African-American community.